Developing this idea was the extremely American-looking man on the left called Braithwaite. So he came up with the idea, in particular, that religious language speaks in analogies. So take, for example, the expressions good, wise, powerful when used in ordinary context to talk about people. These expressions have the same meaning when used to talk about God, or are they used analogously? Is the conventional meaning that when they're used to talk about mundane objects in some way, modified used to talk about God? So what's he asking here? Well, when you project ideas of good and wise or powerful or just traits such as kindness or altruism onto the ultimate thing, which is God, then you're using analogies and you're also asserting that these are good ways for a human being to live as well. So religious language has a prescriptive element to it. So um, similar again to what we've just been saying. So to say that the River Thames has a spiritual energy, that is to say that you ought to preserve the River Thames, these kind of ideas. Now we're getting on to the later Wittgenstein, my favorite Wittgenstein. So rather than going down the Aya or logical positivist route, which is that religious language simply has no meaning whatsoever because it refers to nothing empirical, the later Wittgenstein in his posthumously published book argued that there is such a thing as language games. And what are language games? Well, they're the set of rules within which people agree to communicate within certain groups. So Christians operate within a language game with certain rules whereby it is meaningful to say that God is love and that there is punishment for sin and reward for good acts. And they speak within a language game where all of these things are totally rational because they have certain rules which they use when speaking to each other. I hope that's clear. However, somebody outside of that language game, say take atheists such as Richard Dawkins or Christopher Hitchens. If you don't know who they are, look them up. They speak compellingly, I suppose, on YouTube, even if they speak fairly offensively at some points as well. If you asked Christopher Hitchens or Richard Dawkins, what do you think the statement God is love means? They would say, well, it's absolutely vacuous nonsense. It means nothing. Whereas they might also say that the statement God punishes sinners is actually horrifically cruel. It's a very nasty thing. How can somebody go to hell and burn alive, or burn in some sense for all eternity? That's so nasty. Whereas a Christian would say, well, actually, this is justice. This is not nasty at all. It's not an example of cruelty. So two very different perspectives. And later Wittgenstein says that these things can be meaningful within each of these language games.